John Michael Swift here, and welcome back to my 4-stroke thumb picking series. I always try to decide whether I should call it thumb picking or Travis picking. Some people like thumb picking, some people like Travis picking. Anyway, you know, thank you Arnold Schultz, thank you Merle Travis, thank you all. Yeah, we are going to be talking about some more advanced techniques with thumb picking right now. The 4-stroke thumb picking patterns tend to come from songs that are a little more immersed in the countryside of the thumb picking tradition. Some of them are really just like heavy thumb picking songs. You know, they're really kind of. You know, some of them are, you know, like the Richard Thompson type of work. You know, things that are still a little more on that urban side of stuff. But in general, 4-stroke thumb picking stuff tends to be a little more country, and the sounds that you play the guitar with are also very important. They're just as important as the pattern. The pattern is just kind of almost a holding place. So there's 3 big things that make 4-stroke Travis songs sound the way they do. Not all songs use all of them, but most songs use at least some of all of these. And the 3 basic things are extra walking bass lines, that. The other thing is what some people like to call boom chick, where you kind of do this first thumb stroke for the bass, but then kind of whack a bunch of extra strings. Gives a little bit of a backbeat. The other thing is palm muting. What's lovely about thumb picking is that you tend to use one of these suckers, the legitimate thumb picks. I do love the Dunlop thumb picks. Not endorsed at all. Yeah, I wish. But the Dunlop thumb picks are awesome. So the really neat thing about thumb picks is that they give your hand a little bit of distance from the guitar. And that really lets you have a different kind of position than you could have had otherwise. It's really easy to sort of palm mute. So it lets you have a slightly more articulate bass line. You know, the pick gives it a little bit of extra treble punch, but the thumb kind of mutes it, and it gives it a really unique sound. It's both trebly and bassy and punchy at the same time. It gives it a really interesting, very sharp attack. And it really lets the bass line be a little more defined. So this idea of using palm muting in thumb picking, really, really huge to defining the sound. So let's go through all of these at least a little bit in a basic application. And as you get through songs, you'll start to see how to use them a little bit more. So the first one we're going to talk about is bass lines. Really, this is just using a scale to connect the first bass note of any of the chords that you do. And 90% of the time, you're just using caged chords. In fact, 90% of the time, using major caged chords. So starting out with just your C, A, G, E, and D. A really good thing to start with. So let's say we're on a C chord, we're doing our 4-stroke pattern. You know, which chord might we want to go to next? Let's try to go to the A chord, because no reason. Just realized it's pretty weird. I don't do that often. But really all I did was I said, okay, between the A and the C, there's basically the C's there, B's there, and then we have our open A. So I tried to figure out, where do I have to start playing bum, bum, bum to connect them? And there's a couple options to do it. You don't have to play this root note an extra time, but people tend to do that a lot. So if I'm going 1, 2, 3, and 4, thumb, 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 ba-da-da, and that kind of smoothly gets me into the next chord. And if I want to do that to a G chord, well, there's really nowhere to go. I mean, I could add some extra bass notes in there, but you know, the A to the G is only one note, so I would almost just go. But let's say, for some reason, I wanted to add an extra note in there. I could just add like a little escape tone. Kind of just made that bass line up now, but if I was like A, there's the pattern. 1, 2, 3, A, B, G. There's another little bass line you can throw in there, but the point is you're thinking to yourself, how do I land right on that root? Now let's say I want to go to the G up to the D. Another thing that never ever happens, but, well, you might run into a situation where it does. You might make up one where it does just because. The thing is to start to think logically, where do I got to go? You got to count the number of bass strokes you're going to need to land right on it. So generally every pattern is going to have 4 bass strokes in it. It's going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And you got to figure out how many scale notes you need to get to your next root, and just kind of calculate that out. So from G going up to the D, then go G, A, B, C, D. So you start on the G, that's 1, A is 2, B is 3, C is 4, D is 5. Now, your last note goes on the 1, so you actually don't count it. You actually kind of take how many notes you have to do and you kind of subtract 1. That's how many strokes you need to get to where you're going. So if I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 minus 1, I need 4 strokes. That's basically the length of one pattern. So if I'm playing over the G, 2, 3, 4, I'll just need one whole pattern. I should be able to get there. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Look at that, magic. And all I did was I just played the bloody scale. Easy. So you can really do that for anything, any type of chord you want. Just figure out where your bass line is going, and you kind of count out the number of notes you're going to need to connect it in a scale, and you can change the number of notes you need to connect them. You can make it chromatic. Let's say I was going G down to the E. I kind of skipped that in our little cage sequence, but it really doesn't matter. Let's say I wanted to kind of... You could do that. What if I wanted to make it a little bit longer? Because no reason. I just kind of want to do it. You can just fill it in chromatical. No one's going to stop me if I'm going... And how many does that take? It's 1, 2, 3, 4. So if I need 4 minus 1, I need 3 beats of a 4-stroke pattern to do that walk. So I'm going to play my pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4. Getting ready? Here it goes. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Picture perfect. So that's the basic idea of bass walks, is just figuring out what scale you're in. Yeah, of course, you can add notes or change the scale if you want to, but you want to figure out how many notes you want to go through to get to your next chord. And then you kind of do the math a little bit and figure out, when do I have to start this so I land right on that next chord? And it just adds something to the song. And if you just study lots of songs, you'll pick up some really common bass walks. I mean, every bloody song in this series is going to use... And you'll learn to start them in different places and skip the starting note and a lot of tricks like that. But when you start to play with those, that's what really makes this style kind of come alive. So there's that part of it. Now let's talk a little bit about boom chicks. So you got a guy like Merle Travis or Tommy Emmanuel or any of these kind of really heavier thumb pickers. The pattern that they tend to do a lot, the bass pattern is whatever your 4-stroke pattern is. You got your one bass note, your offbeats are always, you whack a couple of notes and you kind of mute them pretty quickly. Or really. Now, of course, I'm doing the palm muting, which is skipping ahead a bit, but then that actually cleans it up. But let's just start with just this idea of a little muddy by itself, but let's practice it. If you take an A chord, you're going to go A string, whack everything, E string, whack everything. Speed it up a bit. Bass, bass, bass. Boom, check, boom, check, boom. That's your basic idea. Switch your E chord. So now you get your lower note first. It's basically a template of the same pattern you did before. Bass note, higher note, bass note, higher note, but you really whack anything that's on the 4th string. And if you can, kind of mute with that left hand to make it a little tighter. E chord. I hear the train a-comin'. It's rolling down the bend. I don't listen to anything else. I ain't seen a sunshine since I don't know when. I'm stuck in a Folsom prison. Time is dragging on. But that train keeps rolling down to San Antone. I need some bass notes in my voice. But yeah, so you get the basic idea is if you got the alternating bass and then the chick in between, that's what makes the boom chick work. And then you just kind of get used to transposing that over chords. And it's also really useful to learn to kind of crunch a couple of syncopated finger notes in there. I mean, I don't really do it super consciously personally. If you study these songs, you'll get really good at it. But I kind of have a couple patterns in my head. for me, that's not even something I have studied a lot consciously. It's more just like I kind of know how to stick the fingers in there in between. But even when you do that, you kind of really brush them a little bit. It's a little bit of a rougher style, but it gives it a little more rawness, which is kind of neat. Now, of course, if you're playing Merle Travis, you have to be extremely articulate with that. But let's get to that when we get to that. Like I said, if that's something you want me to go into, I encourage you to jump on my Patreon campaign and start sitting down and working on these songs with you, because that's how we create these lessons. I create them with my students. So, yeah. Last thing we're going to talk about in this lesson is palm muting. So the palm muting thing gives the bass a lot more control, and the real trick is just getting used to the position. But again, you keep this sort of right down here, right near the bridge, so you're not like muting the strings, but as you get closer, you start to hear them a bit. Try doing your patterns just with the thumb. And here's the trick. This is how it's different from other styles. You don't really want to mute these strings normally. And you can if you want to. I find that quite difficult. I haven't worked on that a ton. You can do it, I guess, but that's not usually what people do. Usually what they do is the thumb has palm mute over it, and this is open. Makes the bass much more distinct from the treble, which is great. So see first if you can just get, all three of these bass strings nicely muted. I'm just playing over an E chord. And see if you can just whack all the treble strings in between. If you want to get really fancy, then add your boom shakes back in. And there you go. You're officially country thumb picking now. So those are some techniques that are going to show up in all of these songs that we're going to do. I would highly recommend just kind of screwing around with those, getting them over some patterns you're really familiar with or some songs you're familiar with already, and just focusing on the sound and the position of your hand, because that really is what's going to open up everything else. All the patterns come through doing songs. But if you don't have these kind of sounds first, all the songs kind of sound wrong, and they make the songs way more difficult to learn if you don't have them already. So I'd take some time, kind of hammer those basic ideas in, and then start just exploring as many songs as you can, because that's really what's going to open up the vocabulary of this whole thing too. So yeah, I hope you found this helpful. Think about subscribing to the channel if you want to keep having this stuff come at you, because it's going to keep coming. Yeah, and hope to see you all in another video soon. Take it easy. Bye-bye.